As much as I hate saying this, I rather have parents who want to be parents than parents who
Yeah.
stumble into
Yeah.
parenthood.
Yeah.
If you don't feel like you can be a parent, please do not try it. It's not there's no return policy. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have a child today. Try. It's not a
Yeah.
puppy where you can say, I'll try for a week, and if it doesn't work, I could take it back, and someone else can take this. Right. So
Mm.
it's a permanent situation, and we don't want miserable parents who are miserable and transferring their misery and regret to their kids. We don't want that. So
Yep.
only have kids if you know you're cut out to be a parent. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Idle Park Talk Show. We are glad to have you here. I am here as usual with my co-hosts, Roderick Ghana and Lillian, who is fast becoming a regular contributor. I mean, I think that's a title we give her already. On today's conversation, we are going to be talking about parental regret. This is definitely a conversation that I heard over CBC radio on my way to work a couple of days ago, and I was pretty shocked because parental regret really nothing that had ever come across. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and I don't know that we are having it enough. So the topic for today is parental regrets. I think maybe we start with um, maybe me putting the question out there. What, in your opinion, would what would you consider parental regret? I'll have Lillian start.
Yeah, just like you rightly said in your introduction, is that feelings of regrets parents would have after they've had children. Sadness,
Mm-hmm.
regrets
Mm-hmm.
after having children, which usually comes as a result of stresses from parenting. Yeah.
And do you feel like this is a conversation that you've heard before? Has anyone ever brought this up to you in a really serious way?
No, I would say that based on my personal experience
Mm-hmm.
as an African that I am, no one has any discussion with anyone about what parenthood looks like. Nobody discusses that with you. And another thing is marriage is a prerequisite to having kids. So in our African culture, when you get married, the expectation is that you should have children.
Yeah.
And anything out of that is a concern to the community.
So we are definitely going to be talking about some of the pressures that we have and expectations for having children and all that. Ghana, when you
Yeah.
hear parental regret, what is it that
Yeah.
comes?
Well, I think it's basically people feel like they're missing out. They're not living the life that they're supposed to have. Parenting is not what they had envisaged getting into. I think it's just people feeling like a lot of their life is going bad. They cannot recognize the person they've become because they've just had kids or they have kids in their house. So, um, it's a lot of things, but I think part of me thinks some of this is normal to an extent, but then I think we're going to focus on the pathological types of regret up to the point of where you hate your own offsprings.
Mhm.
I think regret is part of life. I don't know. Everybody regrets one thing or another. Even things good that happen to you, you have some sort of regret. But when you take it up to the point of hating the people you've brought into this world, I think that's where we want to focus on. Yeah.
So is there again just in that same line? There's definitely a difference between temporary frustration and
Mhm.
short-term regret,
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
long-term regret that transitions or that transfers to the people that you kind of brought into the world. And you
Yeah.
you, you were trying to make could we
I
clearly
mean, I mean,
clear
I
distinction?
mean, you can say, oh yeah, if I didn't have kids, maybe I'd have been more advanced in my career, maybe I'll save more money, and those things are true. Kids, shocker, they drain your finances. It's part of life. When you have kids, it comes with consequences. That's normal regret. I think any healthy person, will weigh their life. You see, maybe if I didn't have kids now, I should have been more advanced in this way or another. But now I have kids, I just have to enjoy it. So I think that is normal. I think we cannot tell people not to feel that kind of regret. And I'm sure if you've pursued your career, you will still have regrets. You're like, oh, maybe if I didn't pursue my career, maybe I would have had kids. So either way in life, you're going to have some sort of regret, right? But um, when it comes to a point that you are hating on the people that you've born, you brought into the world, I think that's where we have to start putting the brakes now. Maybe this is going too far. Maybe it's maladaptive. You get what I mean?
Hmm.
I don't know if it's normal to say. For me, I think regret is part of life. If you make decision A, means you're discriminating against decision B, and you're foregoing certain things when that comes to decision B. So you can't have it all. That's in a nutshell what I'm trying to say. And regret is part of that.
I mean, I see your point. It makes sense to regret some decisions. I think you could make a point and proudly say, I regret taking this job. I regret living in this part of the world. I
Yeah,
regret moving out of you could regret certain
you can make it.
decisions,
Yeah, yeah,
but regretting having children, for me, that is taking it too far. Lilia, what do
yeah,
you
yeah,
think? I don't know. For me, it's
Let
taking
me
it too
let
far.
me, let me
And
first of all ask. Let me ask Ghana.
yeah,
yeah.
Growing up, did you ever, at any point, hear any of your parents discuss parenthood with you? How is it going to look like? Did you ever have such information or such conversations?
Uh, Yeah, for my parents, I did. I don't know about you guys. I did, and from societies and from people that had other children, I had an expectation that is not going to be easy. I had like you when I came to Calgary, very few people had children, but then you see them carrying um um
car
It's true.
seats
the
and
car seats into the
bags
parties
and
and whatever, and nobody can make it make that look very glorious. It's a difficult decision to having to bring your child to a party. It's hard. So I knew that parenting was hard. I knew that there's a lot that comes with it, and you have to forgo certain things, and you might regret. Um, um, you might regret that. Oh, maybe I didn't pursue this thing because I had kids, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But I draw the line when you start hating on your offsprings.
I.
So
But
as understanding is that, hey?
anyway, Lillian, why that question? Was there a rationale behind you asking?
Yeah.
Because the reason I say is because
I wanted to understand.
reason I say that is because I've heard people say no one told me this was going to be this hard.
Right.
And my
Yeah.
question is, who was supposed to tell you that? Like, where was someone supposed to put you down and
Okay.
school you on what parenting look? You were a child. You knew how
Right.
stubborn you were, how terrible you were to your parents. You
Yeah.
didn't think it was hard enough,
Yeah.
or maybe
Yeah.
your parents made it so easy you thought it was going to. But so
You is
my
it?
question is, why
No,
would
as well, there is
nobody
a
tell you it was going
difference.
to be this hard?
There's a difference between so relationships. Like when you're relating, if I'm relating with you now as a partner, it's a
Mhm,
different thing from me relating with you as a friend outside.
Mhm.
of course.
I was a child.
Mhm,
I saw my parents get up every day and go to work, but that
mhm,
didn't imply to me that they were struggling.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
I just saw it as they are doing everything normally. It is
Right.
only when I started getting up every day and going to work that I
Mhm,
knew that it was
You
hard.
saw the pressure.
mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nobody told me that it was going to be hard.
Nobody told you.
I
So
saw it, but I didn't know how it
You
felt.
did believe. Was
Mm-mm.
part of it like ignoring the reality of you see it but you refuse to believe, or you wanted someone
No,
to
not
like
necessarily. I didn't know that getting up every day to go to work was a
was hard.
challenging.
mhm.
Yeah, I didn't know that my
Yeah.
mom
Yeah.
cooking every day was a very
It
hard
was
thing to
was
do.
hard thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Growing up, I
Yeah.
learned how to cook as well. But being now responsible for another
Yeah.
person,
Okay. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never played that role. So that experience is only you only have such an experience when you become a parent yourself.
Right.
Right.
And
Wo- wo-
then it is easy. It is easy to say I knew that it was hard. But knowing the extent to which it's hard, that
It's
is
hard.
another.
Yeah. Sure.
mm.
Sure.
So again, this is just an example. You have one. and they are 4 years old, and you decide to have another child, and then you have a third one, and then you said, I did not know, would that be an excuse? Because again, sometimes I feel like people make this excuse. People say things like, again, I read someone said it sucks to be a mom, or it sucks to be a dad. And
It
you
does
have five,
suck. Yeah.
and you have 5 kids. I mean, what were you thinking? You had the first one, you
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
second one. It wasn't
Yeah.
hard enough for you. The resentment didn't set in at some point. You had a third, a fourth, and a fifth, and now you have five, and you say it sucks. It
Let me
it it, it,
let
it
me explain
doesn't
But,
it
something.
but
doesn't it,
I
Let
mean,
me explain something to
yeah,
you.
yeah, go ahead,
The
Eileen.
first thing I will tell you is every childbirth encounter is different, and
yeah.
raising each child comes differently.
Mm-hmm.
My son used to sleep throughout the night,
Right.
but you have women who never slept throughout the night. So I would have a different experience from parenting from that the other person.
Yeah,
Some people have children who do not listen. You tell them stop, they keep going.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's a totally different experience from me who would say, hey, stop, and my child stops.
Right.
It's different for each person.
exactly.
So sometimes you get to a point. I wasn't a headstrong child. So I wouldn't be able to deal with a child who is challenging to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Imagine a child who has disability. She never grew up seeing that. She was never a disabled child. The parents never dealt with that. Then she has to deal with that now. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think is going to happen along going down the road of raising
yeah,
that child?
yeah,
There is
yeah.
burnout, things that you never foresaw. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of reasons why parents could experience
The regret. So
regrets.
Regret, regret.
I think that is a
And,
good.
that's a good point. And you said something very important that you saw your parents going to work, but you never felt the pressure. And I think every good parent should do that. You should shield your children from the struggles of life up to a certain
Exactly.
age. That is part of your job as a parent. You're
Right.
not supposed to make your children feel the burden of being provided for at a certain age until they grow up. Like it's the same way you shield your child from explicit content on TV and whatever. And that's what you do as a good parent. Um, but I just want us to really focus the conversation on regret because it can come across as if we regret our children or we're saying that people regret our children. I don't think we're quite that. I mean, this is a healthy level of saying maybe I should have gotten my child in these circumstances to give them the best of life. But then there's also that extreme where people are really hating their children for
Okay.
existing in the same. I think there's a qualitative difference there, if you get
So
what I'm trying to say.
again, before I really want us to talk about why people get to that place, right?
Right.
But
Mhm.
again, I feel like there's a very thin line between the two differences, Ghana.
Yeah.
I feel like there's
Yeah.
a thin
It can
line,
be
and I feel
blurry.
like the consequences are almost the same because
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm getting what Ghana is trying to say. Like
right.
regret is an extreme end,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
what you should understand is that it starts gradually.
Of
It
course.
starts with stress. The
Yeah.
stress builds. There is no resolution. There is no
Right.
Mhm.
remedy. It keeps going
Right.
Yeah.
further. It gets to a depression. It gets to then. It gets to a point of like, I'm done. I wish I was never here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
and
And maybe regret is not really I mean, regret, yeah, those are the people that it's not really the right word to capture the complexity of
what do you think would be the
frustrations
right word?
and
what would you have suggested?
and I think what we're really saying is frustration and stress.
Frustration
I think
better because
huh?
frustration is usually
Regret will mean
temporary.
that I wish I wasn't here. That's what regret just means. I wish I wasn't here.
Yeah, yeah. That
It's
maybe
like a setback.
if you use in that context, it looks extreme. It looks like what we're trying to dwell
Yeah,
on. But there are daily frustrations as parents. Don't you get frustrated with your kids sometimes? You're walking around every day picking the same toy on the same spot. I mean that
Right.
bring us some frustration.
But do
But
you
yeah,
regret having them
no,
in that
that's
home?
what I'm saying. No,
yeah.
that's
Exactly.
So
yeah,
probably
exactly,
you
So
will
that's
not
exactly.
the
regret that.
difference.
That,
Frustration is
so
the day-to-day
It's another
temporary.
story altogether.
It's really
right,
terrible. I don't like what I have. What I don't
yeah,
like what is. But regret is, damn man.
I
How
wish
did
I
yeah,
I
wasn't
find
here.
myself here? I
Yes,
yeah,
wish
yeah,
this wasn't my life, right? But
that's right.
I
mm,
just want us to kind of go back a little and talk a little bit about why do we get to that place? What are some of the reasons that
right,
might get a mom
to
or a
the
dad
regret.
or a couple to a place where they might regret having a child in their care. Leah,
Ghana,
Really.
you want to throw something out?
I think we're living in a very materialistic world where people value their freedom and their autonomy.
Hmm?
They think their lives should center around themselves. The concept of sacrificing part of your life to bring another human being, take care of them and groom them and clothe them and do everything you're supposed to do to them as a parent is almost becoming obsolete. So that and this is all coupled with the complexities we've talked about, single parenthood, working parents, both parents working.
Right.
So people are aiming at financial gain, the ability to travel when they want to travel, where they want to travel, how they want to travel. And so that art of um, anchoring down and having a place to having a person or a place to pull you back to and let you forgo some of those lifestyle that you had envisioned for yourself can lead to possible regrets, of why you find yourself in such a situation.
so for me, I want to focus on upbringing. Probably you've grown up in a home where your parents were emotionally detached.
Mhm.
And then that naturally, that is all you know. So you won't be detached from your kids. You don't, because what happens is when you have parents who are emotionally detached, it makes you to have low stress tolerance. So when you have low stress, of course, anything that is going on around you that is not within your control, you're done. You can't put
Mhm.
up. Of course, it could lead you to a point of regret. Then you have lack of support from partners. So
Mm-hmm.
if I have a child with my partner and probably I'm struggling alone, that could lead to burnout and then get you to the point of regret. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I didn't have a child with this man.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So mostly supports around and probably mental health
Mm-hmm.
supports around then mental health from the individual. It could be from parents, from your own parents. It could be from a mental health challenge that you've developed that could lead you to that point. Then, like Ghana said, lifestyle. Some people desire certain lifestyles that you can't live, you can't eat your cake and have it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
can't do total vacations with little kids. So it's either you'll be prioritizing one or the other. So those are some things that could lead to that. Then social pressure. Social pressure. Some people have friends, there's social media now.
Mm-hmm.
Women want to be free, they want to have time to do their own stuff. So that could be another factor that could,
All right.
yeah.
I really liked the point you made earlier, Lillian, about disabilities. And again, when people are planning to have kids, even those who plan to have kids, nobody's planning to have a child who is disabled, or who would have developmental issues, right? So first of all, it's not just the stress of dealing with a child, like every
Mm.
say ordinary, for lack of a better word, any ordinary child. Now it is like a double situation. You're dealing with a child and
Mm.
with the extra complexities of disabilities or developmental delays, right? Which
Mhm.
takes a toll on parents. First of all, just even you know I think
Normal
denial
children.
too, denial too is some sort of an issue, because again, you have this beautiful little baby with all these complexities. It takes parents a while to even agree that this is a situation that they are dealing with. Once they get past now, acknowledging and accepting what they have in the situation that they are in. Now you have to struggle with everything else. People say, oh, why is your child behaving like this? Now it's stressful. Why is this? Why is this? Oh no, he can't play with my son because he's too rough, or he can't. Now it just adds and compounds to the point where I see why a parent might say, I regret having this child, because the circumstances are so complex and the weight is so too much. If you compound that with, maybe
Yeah.
like you said, a partner who isn't as supportive as they should be, or the sleeplessness and
Yeah.
all that, yes, it,
So
it
Yeah.
it's
is
not
easy.
necessarily partner, it could be just general support system.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
a woman, if you don't have an adequate support when
Hmm.
you have a child, it can be quite draining.
Yeah. And
So
that
if
guy's
the
that
partner is just one. Support
Yeah.
could be friends, family members, close people whom you can talk to
Mm.
when you have challenges. And besides, your partner hasn't had a child before. So you need to have a strong figure in your life, like a mother,
Yeah.
someone who
Yeah.
has had an experience, but that you can always stand back to and say, hey, how do I
Yeah.
handle this? How do I handle that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Y-
I was going to say
I-
that ties quite nicely with the concept of marry before you carry, because it sort of guarantees that you have at least a supportive partner, and hopefully they have an extended family that will come to you guys' aid when
Mhm,
you guys need it.
mhm. Um, you did mention social media, Ghana, and I think social media is kind
Right.
of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's a place where you could go to
Hmm.
and come out feeling like the best parent on earth,
Yeah. That's
right? Depending on what you go to look
likewise.
for. If you go and
Right.
all the videos you see are videos of terrible parents, well, you probably
Right.
come back feeling better about yourself
Yeah.
and about how
Yeah.
you're doing, right? It is
Mhm.
also a place where you could go, come back, you could go in, and after an hour you feel like you're the worst parent on earth, or you feel like you
Right.
have the worst child on earth, right?
Yeah.
You see this beautiful child, well behaved, well organized, everything is kept, but
That's
again, that's
vacation.
social media.
That's
Really,
social
that
media.
is just an act. And then you come back, you judge yourself, you beat
Yeah.
yourself down
Yeah.
because you're like, why is my child not like this? Maybe I'm not the good parent, maybe I'm this. And then you're like, why is everybody doing well except me?
Right.
And it's easier to blame the child, like maybe if I
Yeah.
didn't have you, maybe. So I feel like social media too is a place where people go and might come back thinking about their
Yeah.
situation and about their kids and saying, but why did I have you,
Why did I
why
get?
are you
I mean,
here?
yeah. Social media. I think we're still grappling with the full effects of social media
Mhm.
on how it has affected humanity. For
In a big way,
I
man.
don't in a big way. The way social media has changed the way we live is crazy. Before you were just living in your locality, maybe you had one person that a beautiful girl and a beautiful girl, you guys meet together and then you can form a couple. It was that you connected with people that you knew, people that you guys were around the same locality. Now you can connect with anybody around the world, people of different social status, people of different financial status, and then you begin to compare. It's a terrible place to go for advice. And while I was doing research for this, I did not know that there is actually a subreddit for regretful parents. And this is where my issue with regret is. I don't mind that you regret having your child or whatever. But then when you put it on social media, and social media
That's
never
serious.
forgets,
Mhm.
when you put it on social media that I regret having my children, that's where I think you have gone too far. Because it's going to stay there forever. Your children will go up and see that. Imagine a child growing up and seeing the mom bawling saying, I regret having children. Like, how do you expect that child to feel? And I'm sure people in the past used to regret having children, but then they didn't have this avenue where they will go out and tell the whole world and have it documented for a lifetime that they actually felt the regret. Like I said earlier, part of our job as parents is to protect your children from all the difficulties in life until they are the appropriate age for them to see. So I don't know. Do you imagine seeing your mom 20 years ago saying, I regretted having you? Not the best. So yeah.
The excuse I heard from one of these moms or these parents was that by the time their children are old enough to read and see the post, she would have showered them with so much love and with so much this and with so
Right.
much that it wouldn't really mean. She would
Yeah.
have taught them well enough how to manage emotions and how to understand the world, that reading that post wouldn't really mean a lot to
Right.
them.
Oh, come
And I'm
on.
like, who wouldn't be
Who
affected by
would it?
that? No matter
Who would it?
how reasonable you think your children might grow up to be.
Yeah.
I don't. Nobody wants that. Even in
Nobody
situations
wants
where I
that.
know situations where someone had said just jokingly that you were a mistake, had told the child
Right. Can you
jokingly in
imagine
the
that?
past, like, oh, that you were a mistake because I wasn't ready to have you. We thought we had all our children, and
Yeah.
7 years later you showed up, so you were a mistake, and he took it
Yeah.
really hard.
It took me hard. Then
Right?
imagine
It
having
really
your mom
hard. Then
document that
imagine your mom saying or your dad saying,
There's
I
that
something
regret
on the social
having
there's
media page.
something I want you guys to realize here. There's a difference between wanting to have a baby and wanting to be a parent. I want a baby,
right.
but I don't want to parent.
Right. You don't
You
want
don't
the
want to
responsibility
parent.
The
that
work,
comes.
the work is in the parenting. Having a baby is just the
No,
process.
having a baby is just having a baby.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
there is a difference. So most people have babies when they are not ready to become parents.
And yeah, that's a very good point.
When they are not ready to become parents.
Yeah,
I
I
want
mean,
to,
I agree.
not to dismiss your point. I want to stick to this social media again because I think it's one of the centerpieces of this conversation. Social media, in a way, too, has created a lot of people and has created a big avenue for people to seek validation and consensus and a group
Mm.
and feel yourself and just express yourself and your feeling, be true to who you are and whatever. But yeah, I don't know about going there and saying that you regret your children and having it stay there forever for the world to see. You know, all these things that you have to be true to yourself, you have to express every emotion that you feel and stuff. I think we are in an excess of that, and we need to somehow regulate. It's not everything that you have to tell the world, and certainly not everything that you have to tell your children or your children need to know about you. You know, if you regret having your children, you can keep it to yourself and still give your children the best life that they deserve as a children. There is no need for you to go out there and voice it for the world to know, and certainly for your children to know. It's just damaging.
So who do you talk to about it? Because
You
my
don't have to air
understanding,
every emotion that
But
you have
let
on
me
your mind.
ask you a question here.
Right.
Is it common in our culture for a woman to say, I regret having my children?
that's a good
No, it's
question.
not. It's not.
Okay, why is it not common? What do you think is the reason behind?
Well, I feel like there's societal pressure for you to be able to feel like you must like your children and love your children, and I think there's also shame which
Mhm.
that comes along with that. And I think nowadays we're trying to take away shame for everything. You're not supposed to feel any shame, even if you're doing the wrong things. You know, I think in many ways we have to bring back shame of certain bad characteristics. You know, but I know Lillian, you're in the mental health field, but I think we have gone so far that everybody is supposed to express every little emotion, regardless of the consequences of other people. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. If you
Mhm.
have an emotion that can be damaging to your children, you better keep it to yourself and suck it up. I mean, if anything, you are supposed to take the struggle away from your children, not put undue burden on them. You know, I feel like we have a situation where children are meant to bear more consequences than the people that brought them into this world. You know, it's better for a woman to go on social media and say, I regret having my children, than it is for those children to listen to her say that. You get what I mean?
Mhm.
I have kind of I have do have a different opinion.
Oh, fair. Yeah, sure.
I definitely agree that there's a certain stigma level in our community about
Mm.
maybe men or women or parents who really don't like being parents. There's
Yeah,
an expectation that you should love being a parent. That's the
right.
best thing that would happen in your life. I mean, career, professions, we've talked about this, really means nothing without a family and kids, right? So
Yeah.
there's that expectation that people should want to be parents and people
Mhm.
should love being parents.
Right.
Fine. When you grow up in a community where that is the expectation, now
Mhm.
you are one of those who do not exactly
Do not
enjoy being
ever.
a parent.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, it's an issue, right?
It's an issue.
So
I agree. Yeah.
where who do I talk to about this? Where do I take it to? I see why people would go on the internet, on
Mhm.
social media, and
Right.
and do an anonymous complaint about their situation.
Right.
Why is that the case? Because they know they can't talk about that with anyone around them. First of all,
Mhm.
they might not understand what that feeling may be, because again, like you say, we
Mhm.
experience parenting differently.
Mhm.
People might not understand, they might not get it. People might get it, pretend that they don't, because again, they don't want to be in the same pot with you, right? You're
Right.
a terrible parent, because again, that's the judgment. Once you start saying
Right.
I regret having these kids, the first thing that comes to mind is like, who's terrible mommy this? Like, where are you
I feel
from?
it. Yeah, I
So
feel
that
it.
is the judgment comes in right away,
Okay.
automatically.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I and when I was thinking of I was doing my research, we're doing research on this thing. I was like, if my wife ever told me someday that I regret having this kid, I don't think I'll see her the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I might not, because I don't.
But yeah, okay, besides social
might not
media, do
see
you
her the
think
same.
That's true. Besides social media, I think this conversation has still been happening. People just keep it in the confines of their heart, in the confines of their home, and they talk to someone that they believe is can keep the information in
Do
secret.
you do you
My
do you
problem is the social media. My
peace?
problem exactly, and because I think this thing is not a new concept. It's probably been happening in the past, and people have found way to deal with it, and more importantly, they've found way to protect their children from that. My problem is the social media. When you document this thing on social media and have it for the whole world to see, and then have and then put your face and your name so that your children can see. That's my problem. I
Uh,
don't think regretting your children is a new phenomenon. It's always happened
It's not new.
beginning of time. It's not new, but people have dealt with it, and more importantly, they've protected their children from that undue burden. That's just my issue, and how I think social media has just made the situation complex. Coupled with the fact that mental health experts, I'm sorry to say again, have been pushing society that you should express every emotion that you feel. So that has exacerbated that fact. If I feel a little bit of regret and I feel a little bit of frustration, I go to social media, find a group that says, "Oh, you're not alone. This is happening to everybody. Everybody is thinking the same." And then suddenly, I find the courage to just expressing, regardless of how harmful it can be to my children and my family.
Ghana, I'll answer to that.
Yeah.
mhm.
Mental health did not tell people to go to social media and say that. Mental health encourages you to go see a therapist in the
Go for
confines of the room, have
Right.
those
silent
deep
safety. Yeah.
conversations,
Mhm.
have those, because most often it could be an indicator of something deeper
Hmm.
Right.
than what you're expressing. Because sometimes it's, like I said, it could be adverse childhood experiences that has spilled over into you being, because that sounds a bit like emotional detached parents.
Right.
So a parent who is not present, but he's there.
Mhm.
So it could be that that is the kind of environment you grew up in. Then, of course, it's just been normal for you not to attach.
Hmm.
So going for therapy could help you diagnose where the problem is coming from.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just because I have little support.
Hmm.
Then we find ways that we can support you. Or maybe it's just, it's hard getting up every night to
Right.
breastfeed a
Yeah.
child. Then
Yeah.
we find ways to support you to be able to accept, first of all, the situation, then devise strategies, probably maybe in the night, if the child gets up, you feed the child, lay down with the child, or maybe during the day, try to catch up with sleep. There are
Mhm.
different things you can do that will make things feel better. So that is
Hmm.
the essence of, so mental health has not advised people to
That's
go
right.
out and say
Right.
no. Saying things at the right places is what mental health encourages.
Mhm.
Then to look for solutions to mental health concerns is what
Right.
mental health is all about.
Well,
Would
fair.
would
That's a fair pushback. But I think the high focus on mental health, the high focus that everything must have a mental health root, must have, you cannot feel some level of frustration, or it must be pathological, or it must be at some point that has to be dealt with in therapy or something. People have dealt with this all the time. They have found way to natural. Somehow we have more mental health access, but somehow we are still doing more things that are damaging to the kids. It doesn't add to me. Personally, I don't see that people are becoming more mentally aware, and then we're having people who can go to social media in all this mental awareness and still say that they regret having their kids and still document that. Like, there's not a connection. You get what I'm saying? With increased mental health access, people are acting more mental. That's in a nutshell what I'm trying to say.
I think it's
Those are
important
all
to
theories.
recognize the feelings and those conversations. I
Yeah.
think that is
Maybe that's the
one
point
way.
I'm trying to say.
But again,
Recognizing every feeling,
that is
recognizing
how,
every feeling is probably
if
not the solution. You
I think
have to, yeah.
that's how we kill the stigma.
Well,
Because if we cannot validate the issue, if people are not allowed to come out and say how they feel in certain ways, we can't validate it. If we can't validate it, we can't really
so
deal with the stigma that comes around it. I mean, yeah,
right.
I mean it's hard, Ghana. I understand it. For me, it's heartbreaking for a parent to go on social media and make an announcement like that.
Right.
I feel that, right? I think there are better environments or better places where those conversations could be had, even not even with a therapist. But I think there are more suitable environments where conversations like that could be had and really have productive conversations that might educate and help others. I don't know that going to social media really helps anyone in really in that sense, because again, at the end of the day, it's probably a group of people who feel the same way. No one is challenging them about anything. They just
Right.
validate themselves,
Right.
and they say, okay, maybe this is what the world is becoming. This is, there's no challenging behaviors, there's no
Right.
accountability, right? Because again, if that conversation ever came up, I would definitely be finding out, why did you have children in the first place? Didn't you think about what those consequences might be? Didn't you think about what parenting might look like? Didn't you think about the partner that you were
Mhm.
having these children with? I mean, I understand if someone had children
Yeah.
in a child in some circumstances, rape, um forced marriages, people getting married to people that they really didn't like because of family pressure and things like that. Yeah, if someone said, I regret having a child, and those circumstances, it makes sense to me, right? It's understandable. But you went ahead and got married to a man that you love, and again, you're saying it very clearly, oh, I love this man, this. You decide to have children. You don't have one, you have two, and you have three. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, now you regret having kids. It really,
Okay.
I would challenge you. I would validate.
Wait, wait,
Right?
you just said you can understand. Then why are you challenging? I thought earlier you said you can understand the
I no,
circumstances.
because I understand what your situation doesn't mean I can't hold you account. I can't challenge you to it, right? I could
Right.
ask you questions. I could challenge you to those views. But again, if you met someone who felt it the same way, nobody's holding anybody accountable. So they
Right.
do their thing and they go. I was
Anyway,
going to ask. I was going to
I
ask that
have, I
that
think you contradicted yourself at the end there. Like, are you
say
holding them accountable or not? That's the point. If someone
I
says they
hold you
regret having children,
accountable, but I understand what you're
then
saying.
you
I
understand.
understand
Like,
your circumstances, but I could hold you accountable to that as well.
well, because and maybe Lillian can correct me if I'm wrong. Like, what would be the mental health response to that? I mean, yes, you're sure they'll give you strategies
Okay.
on how to manage the stress and whatever, but I don't think a mental health to tell you that it is wrong for you to go to social media and put your children in harm's way for that. Like, I think that is old school advice that you got from your grandparents and your parents to tell you that you can't be doing that. It's putting a terrible stress on your children when they grow up to see that, And I'm sure, I'm not saying mental health is bad. Mental health is very valuable, but I think we've swung the pendulum way to the side where everybody just express how they feel, regardless of the consequences on others.
Ghana, let me
Yeah.
comment on. You said earlier that mental health. What was it you said? You said something about mental. Okay, that people that mental health validates every feeling that comes up and encourages people to just say anything. So one thing that I want to tell you is that therapy is not meant for people to rely on therapy. No.
Right.
The
You go to
essence of
social media and hear people have been in therapy for 10 years.
yes,
Like,
so
what the heck?
let me tell you, if someone the essence of a counselor or you going to see a counselor is for them to support you to
Get you back
develop
on your feet.
some skills for you to go back and be independent in your life. The essence is
Right.
not for you to be reliant on counseling. Any
Right.
counselor who makes a client reliant on them has not achieved the purpose of counseling.
Thank you.
So that one should be very clear. Counseling is meant to reach out to when you're stuck, when things are quite stuck, like a situation of a parent getting to a point where like I'm regretting. So you need to go talk to someone to
Excuse
help
me.
you process, because it's like you're processing your thoughts.
Hmm.
And probably in course of processing, you realize that maybe I was being too hard on myself or too hard on the child.
Hmm.
At that time, I was just frustrated, like you're saying. Then
Hmm.
it got to that point. But I think if I'm honest to myself, I have had good experiences being a parent as well as bad. So now you're in a place where you're more relaxed and you can have more open and reasonable conversations.
Hmm.
But when you're angry or when you're frustrated, the tendency is you could say things that the next day you'll be like, well, it's not as bad
Yeah.
as I thought.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
So
agree with you, Lillian. Yeah.
yeah, so it is very okay, in my opinion, it is okay for a parent to get to that point. But it is good now to go into therapy and have some deeper
Yeah.
conversations. What
Yeah.
is going on for you? How did you get to this point?
Yeah.
Have you always been like this as a parent?
All right.
So would ask you questions to know what it could be. I don't know. Since I had this child, I've always been frustrated. Maybe I've never learned how to cook for a child. I've never learned how to change, and that is frustrating me. So now you're seeing that the person lacks parental skills, and that is what is leading them to frustration. So
Mhm.
it depends on what is going on there.
Right. Right.
It is
I
okay.
get your
I
point, Lillian, and I get your point, and I'm not casting a badness on all mental health professionals. They are good mental health professionals that make people independent, that make you go and get therapy for a certain period of time, and then you have to go back and live your life and be independent. They are, but it seems to me that the vast majority want people to be. I mean, there's a market there. If you have a client that's dependent on you for 10 years, you're benefiting financially for that. So there's also conflict of interest. It is a flex to tell people that you're in therapy. Have you not seen groups like, oh, people are flexing that they're on therapy? People are flexing that they can express any emotion without any people are covering the bad behaviors because, oh, it's my mental health. I have to
they
say what I feel.
excusing bad
They're
behavior.
excusing their bad behaviors for that.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying, and they are good therapists that will tell you, no, they'll call you out on your bad behaviors. But I feel like a good majority, I don't know what the proportion is, are just cajoling people in their bad behaviors and just giving them excuses to continue in their bad behaviors. And I feel
Opinion.
like I digress. Yeah,
Opinion.
my
Anyway,
opinion, personal opinion.
I wanted to bring it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Based on what I read on the internet, there was a lot more women expressing these feelings than
Mhm.
men.
Right.
Why is it more prevalent in women?
I think for one, women bear a larger portion of the responsibility for childbearing. I mean, they have to carry the child for 9 months, and in the first
Right.
few years of the child's life, they are mostly dependent on their mother, so they bear the brunt of childbearing. I think women too are also very expressive about their emotions. They have more words to say how they feel, when they feel, and what they feel than men are. I think there's a lot of neuroticism too in women. Women feel more stress for the same things that men will not feel as much stress. Women release more steroids when they are stressed, and they are more hormonal when they're stressed. So, um, just to say that there are a lot more they're a lot more sensitive to these issues than men are. I think also society caters to women's needs too as well. There's a market for that. There's a lot of mental health market for women's emotions and how they feel and whatever. And society also shun men who complain too. Like they just tell you to get along. Yeah, that's life. Suck it up and move on. Just to name a few, I imagine it's more complex than that,
Right.
but those
Right.
are the few off the top of my head.
Lillian, yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me the main reason is because women are the child a mother or a woman is a child bearer.
Right.
Mm,
So most often she goes through the process. Of course, that is because one of the reasons why women get to that point is loss of physical autonomy,
Mhm.
meaning that the way I looked like before childbearing,
mm,
I don't look like the same again. So it brings me that
yeah,
regrets.
yeah,
I wish I was my size or I looked the way I looked before. So that's one factor that brings women, oh, like I can't be the same again. I can't turn
mhm,
back the hands of time. It's because of this child that my stomach has stretch marks. I
Mhm.
can't wear my shorts on the swimming pool. I can't expose my stomach. So I think that's a very big factor, childbearing
mm,
for women.
mm,
Then, of course, most children between ages of 0 to 5 are dependent on their mothers.
yeah,
Most often,
Mhm.
some mothers are not good, some dads step in, but I'm just saying in a normal situation,
Right.
mothers will be the go-to for a
yeah,
child. So of course they feel the pressure. Most women would lose their identity in because of
Mhm.
childbearing and child
mhm,
raising. They would lose their physical appearance or changes in their physical look. that can be quite daunting. Nobody is going to tell you that when you have a child, your stomach is going to fall down, or your arms, you're going to put on weight.
Yeah.
Some women hope that maybe when after having children, they will try to walk and look better. Sometimes it doesn't change.
Right.
Yeah, so that can be a huge factor for women.
The identity piece you kind of touched in passing, but I think it's a key factor
The key factor. Yeah.
in women, because
You lose your
again, you would probably know this way better than I do. Once you become a mom and you start having, your life seem to stand still.
yeah.
If you were a career woman, that's it. Wherever you stop, that's where
You have to
you're
make a
done.
choice.
You're done.
Yeah.
You don't have any
You're not
choices.
done. You're not done. It's more
I mean,
challenging.
you're done
So
until
meaning
either
that
your
it
child
puts you
goes
on a
back to school,
pause.
or
It puts you on
technically
a pause.
Yeah, it
you're
So
done
does.
as
so
in
let
a
me
pause,
add
right?
more flesh. Let me add more flesh to the identity piece.
Exactly.
Before you have a child, there are a lot of aspirations, dreams on what your life has to
Mhm.
be. After you have a child, there is a child's need that comes first.
Mhm.
A child needs to eat, a child cries, you are the first go-to person.
Yeah.
Then you begin to lose touch with the things that you used to like,
I mean,
Yeah.
to you, yeah.
because you have changed your focus. Your focus
Mhm.
is now child's needs.
First.
Then a mother, most often some women don't take care of themselves. They don't shower properly. They don't do proper self-care. And that impacts how they feel about themselves and how they look at themselves. It
Right.
impacts how they relate with others in the community. So that could impact their identity as a person. I used to like music. I used to like dancing. I don't even find time to dance again.
Right.
I
Mhm.
used to like going to the party. I can't even find time. Then I had friends. Now, because I'm babysitting, my friends are busy. Nobody has time for me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to focus on my child. So I have lost myself in the process of
Mhm.
Yeah.
childbearing and raising
Mhm.
my child.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the
So
the
how do I
sacrifices,
find myself? The sacrifices of childbearing
the
and raising the child.
sacrifices that women
Right.
make
You
are
lose
a
your
lot more
identity. You could lose your identity. That is why it takes a conscious work for a woman to say, hey, I need to take time and do my hair. A woman could tie her hair for the next 2, 3 months because she's just focusing on the needs of a child. Then she
Mhm.
forgets herself in the process.
Mhm.
So, hey, I need to stop. I would tell my husband to take care of the little one, or I drop my child at my friend's place to go do my hair to look good. So, if you're not taking making those conscious movements, then you would find yourself struggling mentally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Would lead to that. Yeah.
I was also having a conversation with a friend a couple of days ago, and again, not just conversation about marriage and kids and all that. And what she said was, when she turned 23, everyone in the family was calling her and asking, hey, when are you getting married? You're getting
Mhm.
old, you need kids, you need this, you need that. But
Mhm.
she, for some reason, was conscious enough to know that, hey, she needs time to find out who she is, first of all.
Right. Yeah.
Do the things that she loves, live her life to a certain extent before she thinks about a husband or children.
Mhm.
So once you found yourself and you've gotten a certain distance in your life, comfortable place, yes, now you can say, okay, yeah, maybe I won't have a husband, and then
Yeah.
maybe I want to have kids. But again, the idea, the point she was making is that men marry when they are much older. Women marry a lot younger than men. So if
Right.
you're 21-year old, you really don't know who you are. Technically, you haven't discovered anything about you. You don't know what you like. You don't know what you
Yeah.
hate. Generally speaking, right? You don't know the woman that you are. You don't even know if you like kids. You don't
Yeah.
even know if you could be a good parent. You don't even know if you could be you don't know really much about you. And that is the age where parents and society starts pushing you into making those big decisions. So now you're 21 or you're 22. Now you have a husband. Now you have 3 kids. You don't even
Mhm.
know who you are. Now your life, everything around you revolves around these 2, 3 kids that you have. Nothing about you is independent from them. All of a sudden, maybe they you start thinking about what your life has become,
Mhm.
and then easy now to start regretting again, regretting having kids, but regretting having kids this young,
The
or maybe
circumstances.
regret having kids with this man who doesn't really know what he too is doing because maybe he was young too, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes regret it could be circumstantial. It could be as a result of things that happen around you. Um, really not within your control. It could be as a result about maybe bad decisions that you made. Really different ways, right? So when somebody talks about regret, I think it's good to kind of figure out what
You have to
is
ask
it
them
that is,
what do you mean? What do you regret? Because yeah,
yeah.
it can be
Are you
a very big
regretting
topic.
your are you regretting the poor decision, the poor choice in a
Yeah,
husband?
yeah,
Are you transferring that
yeah,
regret of that poor choice to the child
yeah.
who's a victim because he
Is it?
really has no
Yeah,
defenses, right?
hmm,
Are you misplacing your regret? Are you
yeah, yeah.
regretting not finishing a
I
master's
mean, yeah.
degree? Well, that happened 5 years
The
ago.
point.
You
Your
only
job
had
or
children
leaving your
after
job,
that,
Or leaving
or
your
leaving
job.
trying
your
to
job,
you're
Or
trying to
right?
leaving your
stay at
job.
home.
Is that
Yeah,
what you regret? Is that
yeah.
what you're
That's why
regretting
I thought. Yeah, that's
as
why I
Or
thought.
not
opposed to
spending time with friends as you used to do
Or
in the
not spending
past.
time. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's why
as
I
opposed
thought that it was a regret. The word regret, yeah, it's a big topic on its own. We have to like
Yeah.
define what do we mean by that,
Another
you
thing,
know?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It comes up as parental regret, but like I
Mhm.
said in therapy,
It
we
could
There are
don't
be.
many things you guys
know
can
what it
sort out.
means. Yeah,
Yeah, there
so
are
it
many
may
things
be
you can sort
coming
out.
off as parental, but it's not necessarily that.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. Another thing I want us to highlight is I'll give you a typical example of myself. When I had my son back in Cameroon, I had huge support, tremendous, huge support.
Mhm.
So I never got to a point where I felt like I was overwhelmed. I was that.
Right.
If my
Right.
son is crying in the night, my mom gets up, I breastfeed, and she takes him. I go back to sleep. Finding myself in Canada when I had my daughter, it was hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was alone. I had to deal with parenting alone. I
Right.
had not experienced that. I did not expect that that is how it was going to look like. So I think the society in which we find ourselves back home, the story is a bit different.
Mhm.
There is a
I, th-
lot
I
of
think I think it's getting worse as it's getting Cameroon is getting there. Like the people are not having as big as family as they used to.
Mhm.
Families
Mhm.
are shrinking together, and it's not only in Canada; it's happening in Cameroon too.
Mhm.
There are people who have moved away from their villages to seek economic opportunities in bigger city, and they don't have as much support. So it comes with development. It comes with
Mhm.
seeking material gain. It comes with trying to advance yourself in a particular career or in a particular. You have to situate yourself where you can pursue opportunities and at the same time still have children. Unfortunately, we are not living in the 1970s or 1960s where
And
everyone lives in the.
just to add, the support that I got from back home was not only from my family, it was
Also,
neighbors by, it
right.
wasn't necessarily family, yeah.
Yeah.
So neighbors who pass by, a mother's
Yeah.
friend who knows that you've had a child who pass by with
You
food.
guys might have, right.
Here, the story is not the same. We can't
Right.
deny that.
No, that's what I'm saying. I won't deny that, but I'm saying even in Cameroon, it's not happening like when we were kids. Before in Cameroon, your neighbor could beat you on your mother's behalf. Now you can't just touch anybody's children in Cameroon. You can't beat children in primary school in Cameroon, talk less of secondary school. It's not happening. Well, I'm just saying Cameroon is not at the same level of North America, but we are not far behind. We are definitely not far behind. They're moving in the same direction.
Just wanting to add another twist to this conversation. Again, growing up, what I knew was okay. Well, you're here because you need to procreate, have kids, have kids, have
Right.
kids. Well, by the time I was teens, I started hearing about birth control and family planning and this and that. And then now it's the complete elimination of the possibility of having kids. So I'll talk about
Right.
again, this will be sterilization for women. And then some men would go do a vasectomy. Um, I don't know if this is a direct consequence of people of young people growing up and seeing how parents regret being what they do or looking at the situation and saying, yeah, this is not something that I really want to do. I don't want kids. What is it that gets somebody to a place where they are sure enough that they don't want children to the point where they would go do something that is almost permanent so that they don't have
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah.
Family, I mean, preservatives,
Hmm.
it's out there. Maybe at some point you might say, okay, yeah, now I want kids. But what is it
Right.
about people our generation or kids growing up
Hmm.
where they get to a place where it's obvious to them that children
Yeah.
is nothing that they want to deal with?
Yeah. You remember when I said Cameroon is not far back?
Mm.
Um, the pursuit of financial gain, the pursuit of freedom, the pursuit of autonomy, the lack of sacrificing your life, giving up certain dreams of yours because other person to live. You know, I think we're all Catholic here.
Mm?
um, what John Paul described as the culture of death, where everything is taking away life and focusing on you. Everything that matters in life is you, 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 and you. You know, self-centeredness and stuff like
Selfish.
that. It's part of it. And again, I was earlier. I was going to tie this again back to social media. Do you know the messages that young girls get from social media or young boys get from social media? Um, for young boys, you have to get the most wealth in the world, sleep with all the women that you can have access to, never settle down, never have any responsibility, never have anyone depend on you. And what are women also receiving at the same time? You can be a boss babe, you can achieve the highest level of financial pursuit and career pursuit. Children are limiting to those pursuits, and you should avoid them at all costs possible. So all this is there any doubt why people are not having children and going to the extent of sterilizing themselves? You know, I think if you look at it, it's almost like people do not have the self control, and I'm not excusing myself from that. It's like, okay, you know that you cannot have children. Why not limit the things that will lead you to not having children rather than sterilizing yourself? Why going to a permanent extent of sterilizing yourself?
And that is what the
You know,
question is. What is it
like,
that gets you to
yeah.
a place where
I
you're
mean, maybe we don't agree with condoms and whatever and all the um what did you just say?
like control
Whatever,
things?
all the birth control things. Maybe we don't agree with it, but certainly the world doesn't share that. But again, there are a million things that you can do to prevent not having children, rather than going to a permanent solution. So people see it as freedom, but I also, if you look at it deeply, it's almost like a slavery to your instincts. So can you know, like a woman's cycle is what, 28 to 30 days? How many days within that time can you get pregnant? If you do the math, it's not more than a week. So you cannot have self-control within that time that you have to go to permanent sterilization. you
What
know
if what if that 1 week is when I really want to be
Right.
sexually
So
sexually
so
active?
you are a slave to your instinct. You are a slave to your instincts up to the point of
No, I
sterilizing,
I
permanently
rather just
sterilizing yourself.
eliminate. I rather just I want 30 days every month. I'll
Right.
pick and choose when I want to use it. I don't
Right.
want nature deciding for me. I don't
For
want,
sure. For sure.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. But, but, but,
you're
but you
just
get my
looking at
point.
us and like these
Yeah.
people are crazy.
But
What are
you,
they saying?
but you get my point. The point is you become a slave to the so you're sacrificing your potential of having children to the altar of freedom, to the
Mhm.
altar of self-organization, to the altar of self-autonomy. you know that's how I said. I know people look at it as freedom, but you're really a
It's
slave
freedom
to,
at a very high cost.
at a very high cost, because freedom is not necessarily you do what you want to do. I think I know that's a permanent consequences, that's a permanent notion of freedom. But freedom doesn't necessarily mean that you go out there and kill anybody. Freedom comes with responsibilities. The freedom of not to have a child is it also comes with the responsibility of avoiding the things that will lead to having a child in the first place, or the circumstances.
Whatever choice you make in life, there are consequences.
There are consequences. Exactly.
If you're making the choice to have a partner or to have a child, there are
There are
consequences.
consequences.
If
Yeah.
you're making the choice not to have a child, there are equally consequences.
Exactly.
So whichever way you take, you may get to a point where you
Yeah.
would need support mentally. That's just how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
again, it's
that
not.
that someone has decided not to even have a child doesn't mean that they would not have mental struggles along the road.
They're
They
gonna
would,
have
yeah.
mental struggles, and they'll
It
have
doesn't
regrets
eliminate
too.
that.
That
Yes.
They
same
might have. They
person
might have
tomorrow may
regrets.
say, I am a lonely person tomorrow. I wish
Mm,
I had had one child.
yeah.
Yeah.
that I can talk to or that I can lean on. You get what I mean? So
Alright.
it is because today we are focusing on regrets of what parents experience. It's okay. Parents have challenges that they go through that could sometimes lead you to a point where you feel like you're stressed out, and then you're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I wish I never got here. But then the other side of the coin is not free.
It's
So I
not
think
free. Yeah. Yeah. That's the
it
point I was
means you
trying
have
to say.
mental stress. That is what I wanted to say. So
Yeah.
wherever you find yourself in life, whatever situation you find yourself, you
You're
would
gonna have
definitely
stress.
have to deal with a stressor, and you have to learn how to handle stress.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you don't learn how to handle stress, you will get into difficult situations. You
Right.
have to, yeah, you have challenging decisions to
Yeah.
make, and it could lead you to a point where you start feeling like I'm regretting this or I'm regretting that. And if
Right.
you're getting to that point of regret, then I think it is time to seek therapy. It's time to talk to
Yeah.
someone.
I guess, yeah. My point is, why go to the point of sterilizing yourself at 21 years old, at 22 years old? Like, why do you go to that extreme instead of, avoiding the situations that will lead to pregnancies? And there are a multitude of them out there. Why just jump into the permanent?
And I definitely think they are less pep. They are less pep.
There are
There are
options out
there are
there,
options, temporary 4 or 5 years options where you could take time and be yourself
and
and
think
discover
to build
yourself
yourself.
and be whatever it is that you want to be, and then
Right.
reevaluate in
Reevaluate that.
five
So
years
my
and
issue is
decide
really
whether
the
or not
permanent. My issue is really the permanent
that is
decision
my
that you
question.
make at a teenage year or at your early 20s that you don't want to have kids. That's fine. Make that decision at that time, but you don't go as far as sterilizing yourself. That's my only issue.
It's terrible. I mean, a man. Why do you need a vasectomy?
Vasectomy.
It's
So
easy to
yeah.
not get
It's
the
easy
girl
not
pregnant
to,
if you really wanted to, right?
yeah.
Why cause a permanent? Because again, for men, it's completely I mean, it's completely
It's
permanent. There's
permanent.
nothing you can
Yeah.
do about it,
Yeah, yeah.
no
I think
matter
there are ways
how.
to. I think there are ways to reverse it now. I think there are modern
Oh,
ways to
really?
reverse
You
it now.
know,
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
You
I
know,
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had, they
I've
don't
always heard
completely
that
snip.
that's final.
That's what I knew, but I think they've developed new methods
Oh,
to
Okay.
reverse that.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
hopefully there's some saving grace for those who
Right.
might get to a point and
Yeah,
say, "Damn, I made a big
yeah,
mistake. Maybe I want
Yeah, I
kids."
wish I changed. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I want to
So,
turn back. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, one thing, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, that permanent decision is where I have an issue with. Like, fine, make a decision not to have children. That's totally fine with me. But I would like you to, not sterilize yourself because you make that decision.
So I want us to answer this question. Hey,
right. Go ahead.
what do you think will be the effects on a child when a parent is going through that stage of regret? What do you think are the impacts or consequences on the child
Yeah,
when a parent feels that they are
they
regretting
were
having
they were a mistake.
what is going to happen to that child? Yeah. In the
We-
short term and long term.
So we are definitely acknowledging that these parents don't only feel that regrets in
They
themselves;
show
they
their
are
children,
exhibiting
right?
Yeah,
to the
because
point where
you're
a child
by your
discovers.
actions, by your words, by everything you are professing,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you're attesting that this is how I feel, meaning that you're definitely not, you're probably detached from your child.
Yeah,
Mm.
You're there, but you're not present.
yeah,
Yeah,
So what are some of the effects of a parent who is going through a situation like parental regret? What do you think is the
right.
impact on the
Yeah,
child on a short term and on a long term basis?
I sincerely think that there's definitely going to be strain in that relationship.
yeah,
It would might be a relationship that would never recover because
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
as a child, if no one loves you in this world, you know your parents do.
Your
They
parents love
say
you.
it in pidgin, even if money mommy like you,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is what is commonly said. No matter how terrible a child is, the only person you can count on
your parents.
who would never say I don't love you, probably your parents, mostly your mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if a child cannot rely on that love from their
Yeah,
mother, I don't know the kind of relationship that those two people would have. Definitely going to be a strain. It's a child. How do you explain to a child that hey, this is feelings?
mhm.
I might love you, or maybe not, but I regret having you. Just back to the question I asked, can you regret having a child and still love that child in the same breath?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard.
For me, you can't
Yeah.
regret having something and then turn around and say, but I love you to pieces. How? So if I was a child, what my parents were telling me, we probably would not have a relationship. A
Right.
relationship full with tension and animosity, and definitely it would kill a child.
Lack of self-confidence, self-hatred,
Mhm.
maybe suicidal thoughts,
Mhm.
strained relationship, as you've
It would
articulated.
kill your mental health. It would
You
Yeah.
kill your
weaken
mental.
a child's
Yeah.
resilience and mental health to
Right.
zero.
Yeah. Yeah. So all those things, I'm sure Lillian can explain more. I
The-
think the psychological consequences are definitely devastating, both
Oh,
long-term
if
and
if
short-term.
if your parents regret having you, would you ever feel safe around them?
No,
definitely not.
really not.
Emotional
You
safety,
can't
even
feel safe
physical
about your
safety.
home. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
parents are the prototype of how you reflect to the world. They
Exactly.
they are your archetype. They show you how the world is supposed to operate. Then they let you out to go and deal in the world. And then if you don't have that grounding, I can't imagine the kind of human being we're rearing. We're probably rearing monsters. People
I
that
mean, just talking about that, Ghana, it seems to justify why maybe some people say I can't have, if this is
maybe
what my parents are doing to me
yeah,
and this is all I know, maybe I should end it here. Let's not
yeah,
create another
yeah,
generation of
yeah,
miserable children, because
yeah,
right. So I mean, it could make sense
yeah,
that a
yeah.
child might see how they were treated or raised by their parents, or hated and love and this, and decide that they don't want a child to come into this
Into
world
this world, yeah,
and experience the same
the same
kind of
things. Yeah.
upbringing. Love that is not guaranteed, love that is circumstantial, love that is not consistent.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points that you guys have brought up. The first thing I want to note here is I don't
Mm.
know if you come across the concept of parentified or parentification.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the first thing you would see is that children start taking, a parent who is regretting having a child, you would find the children start taking adult responsibilities.
Because
Mm,
you're not there. Yeah.
So probably he starts providing, getting, going to the kitchen to cook his own food by himself.
Mm.
A child of, let's say, 4-year old has to fend for themselves, has to prepare their lunch, has to put their clothes in the laundry, has to make decisions like a parent. So that can be quite detrimental to the child. Then
Mhm.
some other things you would see in children who have parents who are emotionally detached, which would probably describe the situation of parental regret. Because when you're regretting, you're definitely not no longer connected.
You
You're
can't
no
be.
longer
Yeah.
playing your role as a parent that you're supposed to be. So you would see things like feelings of abandonment. The child will feel abandoned. The child will have esteem issues, lack of confidence. The
yeah.
child would experience inconsistency in their emotional response because that is what they see in their parents. Their parents are warm and at the same time, for instance, they are distant. For instance, your child comes back home from school and they say, "Hey, daddy, good afternoon. Oh, daddy, you know what? I had a 10 on 10 in my exams today." Your father is like, "Okay, is that a response that you expect from
Mm-hmm.
parents after you've told them that you had 10 on 10 in your score at school?" The parent is present. He's present, but then he's distant. So it helps those children develop inconsistency in emotional response. Then other things you see is lack of emotional expression. So you start coiling up as a child, then you will not feel confident to express yourself or how you feel
Mm-hmm.
because you're struggling with shame, guilt, and many other things going on for you. Then you would have children struggle with absence of physical affection because their parents have not given them that. So they can't give affection, they can't hug, they can't be warm towards people. That
Mhm.
impacts them generally. It impacts them in their childhood and in adulthood as well. Then they become dismissive. You're growing up with a parent who is dismissive or who doesn't acknowledge your feelings or who minimizes your feelings. Maybe you're sad because your dress got torn, a dress that you love so much, and they just like, oh, it doesn't matter, forget about that. They always dismiss your feelings and then you don't feel validated. So it makes you develop an attitude of being dismissive towards other people's emotions as well. Then you have risks of abuse. You may either get into an abusive relationship, you're at risk of getting into an abusive relationship or unstable relationships in future. Because this is your parents set the foundation, they set the tone, they set the stage
Mhm.
for your relationships in life. If you have stable, loving caregivers, loving parents, then it is setting the stage for you to develop and build loving and caring and stable relationships in future.
Yeah.
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 Once you're growing up with a parent who is regretting having you, they are struggling, then of course
Mhm.
they are not present, then that impacts how you relate with others too in future. Then you may present as a child as needy because your parents do not attend to your needs. They don't attend to your physical, emotional, social needs. When you need to talk to them, they are not there. When you need to hug them, they are not present. Then you become a needy child. You present as needy to other people. It impacts the way you present yourself and the way you relate with others in future. Then you develop unhealthy attachment issues. Either you're becoming codependent on others, or
Mhm.
you're people pleasing, or you're possessive, or
Mhm.
you're being so jealous, or you're being impulsive. Then you struggle with tolerance. You can't handle stress. Even the list of stress that a normal child is expected to handle. Let's say a child of the age of 5 years is expected to be able to deal with a toy that got bad. You would find that child crying and hitting things, throwing objects all over the place. That could be quite challenging. So it has
Yeah.
huge, tremendous effects, both in the
No.
short term and in the long term.
So I want to believe these are parents who show their regret to their children. Like if you regret having your children and you don't show them this, they should still be fine. Like you can focus your energy and be positive. You regret having your children, but focus your energy and be positive to them, right? The children will not experience this. So you adult as an adult and let the children be children.
But
Again, but
unfortunately, once it's coming off as regret, it is most
it's
likely
already showing.
That
Yeah,
express
it's
is
it means
most
it's
likely
gone to a
coming
point where you
from your
can't really manage
behavior,
it.
your emotions,
Mhm.
your mentally it's
right.
draining you, it's affecting your relationship socially.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
taking off, yeah, it's consuming you. Let me put it that way.
A child could see. A child could see that, hey, mommy or daddy, the attitude towards me seems to be
Disconnected.
changing a lot more. They are not as affectionate as they used to be. They are a little bit more distant. They don't really care about my interests. They don't. A child could see that at a certain age, right? They are able to know, okay,
You can
Yeah.
feel it.
there's something
Even
wrong
when you're
here.
not showing them, even you, I guess
Yeah.
you attest that there are times when you're sad for one reason or the other. Probably you
Yeah, they
came back
know.
and you had a bad day. You've not said nothing to your child.
Right.
Your child comes back from school. Hey, daddy, how are you doing? Fine. Daddy, are you sure you're okay?
Hmm.
You've not said nothing, but then they can
But that's not regret, is it?
No,
That's
no, it's
like
no,
just an
what I'm trying
example
to
in
say
terms
that
of how
even
yeah.
children
even
can
when
sense.
because you talked about that if the parent doesn't show it, then it doesn't
Right.
impact the child. That's why I'm saying that unfortunately, sometimes when those thoughts run in your mind unconsciously,
Hmm.
You
you would
sure?
show
Yeah.
it without
Yeah.
yes. So once the thoughts are already running through your mind, then
Hmm.
the energy that is the energy you're emitting, and
Right.
anyone around you who cares about you will feel that something is not right with you.
Mhm.
Hmm. Hmm.
A parent who is
Yeah.
regretting will
Yeah.
most likely be disconnected from a child.
Right.
That's the truth about it.
I think that I think that is also a point where we have to respond to be responsible for our own action. I don't
Mhm.
care how you feel. You have to be the adult in the room and suck it up so that the child can be a child and the child can experience being a child without the pressure of
Right.
whether the parents regret them or not. So I think that's part of what I'll say to parents. Your feelings should not matter that much the way you treat your children. I don't care. Suck it up. You have to be the adult. You are the one who brought children into this world. You are
Mhm.
the one who have to suffer for your children to be able to have the best life. If you come back from work and you're stressed, or even you regret having your children, I don't care what you do. Put it away so that your children can't feel your love.
Again, I agree with you, Ghana, but easier said than done. Once
It is
you've
well,
gotten
sure.
you've
That's
crossed
all.
the Rubicon, they call it. You
Okay,
can't
so
hide it. You can't hide it anymore. I don't know
Well,
that you can hide.
because the point is we keep cajoling people. Oh yeah, you feel regret and whatever. I don't care whether you feel regret or not. It is your
Suck up, do your
responsibility to
job.
provide. It is your responsibility to provide the best environment for your children. I don't care if you've done 12 hours. When I'm coming to my house at the end of a long day, 12-hour shifts, I've been yelled by patients and by other professionals, by doctors and whatever. I have the option to say, I'm going into that door. I'm either coming with a happy face, or I'm going to show my children that I've given the best to other people outside. You know, so those are the two options I have before I open that door. If I'm opening that door, I can choose to say, despite how tired I'm still going to acknowledge my children, play with them for a little bit, be with them. Or I can choose to be a terrible dad. You know,
Hmm.
a parent is a parent. You are supposed to bear the burden for your children. Take it away out from your children.
Hmm.
Your children are supposed to be children. You know, that
It is a critical responsibility. Sometimes I don't know. We don't take parenting seriously enough.
no,
It
because
is a
we let our
responsibility.
emotions. We're supposed to be controlled by every emotion that is out there. Oh, I regret having these children. That means I was just treat them poorly. I don't care whether I regret having the children. Your feelings should not matter that much, especially when you have young people depending on you. You have a responsibility and you have to live up to that responsibility.
If anybody watching us out there is finding
Yeah.
themselves in that situation,
I
what is
think
the
you've
remedy?
said a lot. There are people that think therapy is beneficial for them. If you go to therapy, that's fine, but you should not be dependent on therapy. You have to still go back and be a parent.
Mhm.
Um, 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 I said find the tools. If you can get support from family members, from friends to help. For me, that's optional. But at the end of the day, again, I'm going to repeat myself here. At the end of the day, you are an adult. You
Lock
have
it
to
up.
take responsibility. Suck it up. Your children have to have the best of you. You're not supposed to give them a mansion or the best car, but your children do not demand it. They do not demand to come to do what you brought them on your own accord when you were jigging with whoever you were doing that thing. At the end of the day, you are an adult. You're supposed to take away the burden of take away stress from your children. That's what normal parents do. Children are not supposed to come here and take away burden from us. We are supposed to take away burden from children.
Children don't take care of parents. Parents do.
Children don't take care of
And
parents.
I
Parents take
think
care of children.
we really need to
And it's
understand that.
okay. It's okay. It's okay to miss career opportunities. It's okay to miss advancement opportunities. It's okay to miss hanging out with your friends. If you're doing that for the betterment of your children, you're doing something wonderful. Okay.
Someone said you need to sacrifice yourself
For
in
your
order to
children,
do better for your children. You have
you
to
need to.
sacrifice. You're sacrificing everything about you,
Yeah,
almost everything about you,
and I feel
for the
like
benefit of the kids.
we've lost that art. We think that parenthood is just glorious. You're supposed to have children and not sacrifice anything. I'm sorry, it's not. That's not real life. When you have children, there's a lot that you forgo for yourself. Not just normal life. Your parents did it for you. You're doing it for your children. Your children are going to do it if they have children. But if you think that life is all about the material things that you gain, the self-organization, the promotion in work, well, that's up to you. Don't have children. But if you have children, yeah, it does affect all those things.
I have suggestions
Yeah,
but mine would be for not for parents who not for people with kids. Mine it would be for people who don't have kids yet, who
right,
might be thinking about it. I would strongly recommend take your time to think very critically about children before you go ahead and have any.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Think about what is it that you want in life.
mhm.
Are you ready to make the
Yeah.
sacrifices
Yeah,
that it takes
it takes.
to
Yeah,
raise a child?
yeah.
Are you willing to give away everything? If you're
Not
able to
everything.
arrive,
Yeah,
I mean, basically everything, man. Everything.
but I know I want to counteract that with the fact that it's not the end of the world when you have children. You can still find a way to still live your life and have certain pursuit and enjoy other things. It's not the end of the world when you have children too.
Again, you can
I feel
find
like that's what it's on.
I like the language. You can find a way,
You can find a way.
which is what we all do, right? But
Right.
again, you're only
Yeah.
finding a way because you had given that way up because the kids were here. Again,
Right.
yeah. So they really need to think about what it is that they want in life, right? And I would definitely agree if you have thought about children and you honestly believe that you are not cut out to be a parent, go do your
You can do
vasectomy.
something else.
Good for you.
Right.
Go do your sterilization 100%.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
want kids
I
with
mean,
parents who are not ready to parent. If
yeah.
you've
Yeah.
gotten to that place, cut the organs and throw in a bush. I don't
Right.
care, right? So that's the first thing.
Oh.
The second thing, second thing is that
Because you make it, you're making it sound like if you have to do your life is just over. I don't want us to put that kind
Yeah.
of message out
No,
there.
your life definitely it's over.
There are
Again,
certain joys that come with having children too that we
hey
cannot
man,
dismiss.
and again, that is the next point. We need to start having honest conversations about what it is to be a parent,
Right.
because you can people pick one and they glorify parenting and it's like it's the best thing, and that's all they talk about, knowing
Yeah.
fully well that there's another side
There are
to that
struggles. Yeah.
story, right?
Yeah.
They don't talk about the struggles at all, while
Yeah.
others focus on the struggle. I think we need to have a balance.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a
Yeah.
bed of roses. There are good days, there are bad days. This is what you do when it's good. This is what you do when it's bad. You need a good support system. You need this. We need to start having those conversations, honest
Yeah.
conversations, talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly about parenting, so that people
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
feel like they were deceived into becoming parents. Which again, I would. It's crazy to me that anybody would think like that. But there are people who feel like they were deceived into becoming parents
Yeah.
because they don't think feel like they had they made informed decisions. So
Mm-hmm.
let's start having
Mm-hmm.
honest conversations about what it means to be a parent. Those are my
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
my that those will be my contributions to what to do. Right? Again,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, those are quite insightful comments to make. So just to add to what you guys have all said, I
Mm-hmm.
want to quote one child and parent relationship specialist, a psychologist who
Yeah.
specializes in child and parent relationships. So he
Mm-hmm.
says that having regrets as a parent is something that is seen frequently.
Mm.
Parenthood,
Mm-hmm.
having regrets is a common occurrence.
Yeah.
But what can help or heal the situation is get a confidant, get someone who can listen to you, someone who can give you a listening ear, someone who can give you where you can transfer your hope, your energy
Mm-hmm.
rather, where you
Mm-hmm.
can give all your energy, where you can get some hope, and where you can feel relieved. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have someone that is a confidant, someone that you can confine in that, hey, like Ghana said that we shouldn't be saying that on social media. That's not the right place. So it is better off if you have a close friend, close family member,
Mm-hmm.
mom, father,
Mm-hmm.
anyone whom you're comfortable talking out, airing your mind. You have
Mm-hmm.
that conversation with them. You release that energy because it's an energy in you that you need to release. You release that energy, then it gives you a sense of relief after that. So that can be quite helpful. So
Yeah.
mental regret is a common occurrence. That's the
It's
first
common.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the solution could be having supportive people around you who can listen to your
Mm.
challenges. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before you guys do your final remarks, I'll read something first, and then I'll let you guys do your remarks, and then we can close. Motherhood sucks. I wish someone would have warned me before having kids how much of your identity you lose. I wish someone would have told me how much freedom, finances, sleep, hair, sanity you lose once you have children. I was sold a lie when everyone around me said that pregnancy and motherhood was the best thing ever. I'm miserable now. I can't help to mourn the person I used to be. I feel like I am in a hellhole while everyone else around me is in la la land having a good old time. I I am not meant to be a mother. Being attached to a screaming child 24/7 is not how I envision my youth.
Mm-hmm.
If I can go back in time and stop myself from getting off birth control, I would have. I thought that kind of sums up more or less
Mm-hmm.
the conversation that we've had today. I think
Yeah.
that was what inspired this conversation, and I think we kind of summed
Mm-hmm.
it up pretty nicely.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'll end. Final words. Gonna go
Yeah.
first. And yeah.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to be dismissive of people's feelings. I'm sure that people that feel that way about motherhood and um, you guys, and I agree with you guys, we can acknowledge that. But Well, as soon as you become a parent, a mother especially, your priorities are second. Your child is the first. So I'm sorry you feel that way, and I know a lot of people feel that way, but you have to protect your children from such feelings. Like I said earlier, I don't care how you feel, these feelings should not translate to your children. And it's okay to have regrets. Life is full of regrets. Even if you didn't have children, like we said earlier, you will still have regrets. So I think it basically comes down to focus. Are you seeing your glass as half empty or as half full? You know, you have the power. The good thing is you have the power to channel this energy into something positive. You can say, oh, yes, I feel this way. Yes, I feel regret. Yes, I feel all this negative thing about having a child. But can I channel that to the child in something positive? That's how I understand. I guess, and I know life is complex. We all have regrets. We're gonna have missed opportunities because we have children. You're gonna have certain blessings that come because you have children. That is the complexity of life. But at the end of the day, you are the parent. You have to take away the burden from your children. Children are not supposed to bear the burden for their parents. I don't care how you feel. Suck it up and do the job of a parent.
Lillian?
Okay. Yeah. So for me, what I would say is first, I want to acknowledge and recognize that it's okay for a parent to feel some sort of regret at some point in time because there are a lot of losses that comes with being a parent. You have to lose yourself, you have to lose your profession, you have to lose your social status. There are a lot of things that you lose being a parent. But it is not okay if the regret begins to consume you and impact other aspects of your life. So if it begins to impact your relationship with your child, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others around you, then I think it is time to speak to someone, talk
Mhm.
to a close one, talk to a supportive person, or seek therapy.
As much as I hate saying this, I rather have parents who want to be parents than parents who
Yeah,
stumble into
yeah,
parenthood.
yeah.
If you don't feel like you can be a parent, please do not try it. It's not there's no return policy. You don't
Hmm.
have a child today. Try. It's not a puppy
Yeah.
where you can say, I'll try for a week, and if it doesn't work, I could take it back, and someone else can take this. Right. So
Mm.
it's a permanent situation, and we don't want miserable parents who are miserable and transferring their misery and regret to their kids. We don't want that. So
Yeah.
only have kids if you know you're cut out to be a parent. But again, just wanted to go back and thank everyone who was watching. If anything on this show appealed to you, made sense to you, if you found this informative, please like, first of all. We need you liking. And if you have a minute or two, please just leave a comment about what it is that you enjoyed from the show. If you have any questions that you want follow up on, if you have any topics that you feel like you want us to talk about or you're willing to come talk about, please let us know. And also kind of share this with your friends. It doesn't cost you anything to share. Go to Facebook, share it to WhatsApp, wherever it is that you are on social media. Please share and share and share and much as possible.